And today we're going to start Hey. Very fine. Perek Vav, Perek Shishi, 6th chapter, and in Piska Hey. What page is it on?
Memchet.
Memchet.
Hayevaya.
Havaya, right. That's it.
Vav Hey. Memchet. Memchet.
Right. Perek Vav, yeah. Hey.
And then it's this.
Right there, yeah. Yeah, got it.
Perek Vav Memchet.
Okay. And the Rav is continuing in these final pieces. Let's see how much we're able to get through today, maybe to get to the end of the parak. The discussing on the new face here.
Micha.
Micha? Nice. Also Micha.
Oh.
Where are you from?
California.
Okay, where about?
Orange County, Dana Point.
Orange County, all right.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to be with Hatzlacha. Okay, so again, Rav Kook is continuing the theme of the interconnectedness of everything here. And this piece really speaks it out. Havaya, existence. Hamaaseh habachiri shel adam, and the actions that a person makes from his free choice, meaning the willing actions of a human being, and all of existence. Uritzono kavua, and a man's established ratzon, his will, his desire, his where his heart's at. All of these things which seem like disconnected things. Hinam shashelet achad gdola shemeolam einam nitakim echad mechavero. All these are one chain, interconnected chain. Shemeolam einam nitakim echad mechavero, that are never disconnected one from the other. Right? There's a famous teaching, the Ramban, that it says that when a person eats unkosher food. So you guys know remember what the Ramban says? What does it do to a person? It brings them a timtum halev. Timtum halev means a little bit of it makes their heart just a little bit desensitized.
What?
Desensitized. Timtum. Right?
Without taste? No.
Timtum means to dull or to make something that's like blunt, like not sensitive, not nuanced.
Because metumtam is like dirty or something?
Metumtam is Israeli slang term for like idiot. You know, like when they want to. They've got lots of on the street in Israel. There's lots of terminology that. Was that a correct translation? Right. That's unfortunately right. But what that means, you know, like I mean, the connection between that is like, you know, a person who doesn't think so deeply, right? So timtum halev means we want our hearts to be what the sages call a lev basar, a flesh heart, a heart of flesh. What does that mean? All of our hearts are of flesh, meaning that it's sensitive, not a heart of stone where you touch it doesn't feel anything. A heart of flesh where it's so gentle, right? And like Rabbi Nachman explains, a lev nishbar, which literally translated means a broken heart, but that's not the concept that in Chassidus. A lev nishbar means a heart that's porous. It has holes in it. It's open. It's fluid. The emotions coming in and out, right? I'm receptive. I'm sensitive, right? So when we eat non-kosher food, says the Ramban, so it makes our heart a little bit less sensitive, spiritually sensitive. Person says, what are you talking about? I eat cheeseburgers my whole life. I'm very sensitive, right? You might be sensitive in certain ways, but there's a certain spiritual sensitivity. There's a certain, you know, it's like if you buy a new car and it has a certain kind of fuel. Right? I have a student that had like an ecological friendly bus, and it used like peanut oil. Right? If you use a different kind of oil or whatever, right? There's horaot. There's a book of instructions of how to work not just this body, but also how to work this soul, that it gets brings out the full potential. And if we're not doing it, so it's true that the car can still run for in many ways, but it might be deteriorating and you don't even realize it, right? So too, people are eating all kinds of junk food all the time. We don't feel. Some of us are sensitive. We feel it on our body as, you know, direct correlation as we eat it. And then there's some people that I know people that they smoke, they eat all kinds of junk food, and they never get sick, right? Until one day they do get sick, because of course it's having a terrible hashpah on their body.
Maybe there's also mind influence. Like if you get that, if you you know that what you're eating is unhealthy, maybe also your body as a sort of a warning towards you to feel you sick,
Right.
to make you like
Right.
not
That's
do that.
right.
If you don't know, maybe you don't have the alarm on. Let's
It
say
could be.
this.
It could be. And there's
Or your
some people
body
that
neither knows that
true.
specific
Right.
food is not good for you,
Right.
either from the past.
True. But there are also a lot of people that have no there's no awareness whatsoever, healthy, unhealthy, and their bodies are. But you're right. It does. Everything is mashpia on everything. But the point is that those people that don't feel the negative effects, it might not be that they're not feeling the negative effects. Like, for instance, to give you from my own experience, I'm very sensitive. My body's very, very sensitive. If I'm eating unhealthy, if I'm not exercising, I'm not sleeping, so I feel. My wife's body's very, very strong. She doesn't feel anything. So when I was making some major changes in my life and eating healthy and everything, she was kind of like dragging her feet. She wasn't really coming along with me. And for me, I was seeing huge changes in my for the good, and then only when she started, she was like, "Wow, I feel better." I said, "But you never said that you felt bad. Like I was the one that was always complaining." She said, "I didn't realize that I wasn't feeling as good as I could have." Right? So many times also on a spiritual level, it's the same thing. A person doesn't realize that they're in a spiritual place of desensitization. They're insensitive, right? They don't feel it. They're used to it. They're accustomed to it, right? Everything is connected to everything. Just like the cheeseburger is connected to your spiritual sensitivity, also what you want, how you think. Am I thinking straight? I think I'm thinking straight, right? What allows my brain to think straight? I have to have spiritual sensitivity. All these things are all connected to each other. The actions that I do, right? Like there's a famous story of one of the masters of a teacher at University of Ethics. I don't remember what kind of ethics, but he himself lived a life. There's a whole story from the 60s or 70s, and this person was a very unethical person in his life, but he was one of the world's experts in ethics. And they asked him, "Don't you see an issue here?" And he said, "What does one have to do with the other?" Right? I'm teaching. If I'm a philosophy professor, do I have to live by that philosophy? Right? So maybe not. I'm not judging him, but don't think that it doesn't affect one thing or the other, right? Your ability to think straight and to be moral has everything to do with your actions that you take. And not only that, all those have an effect on the world at large, all of existence, and all of existence has an effect on all of those things, those parts of you as well. There's an interconnectedness, right? Like the butterfly effect, right? Everything affects everything, right? And in a very, very deep way, even though we don't see it, we don't necessarily feel it, and we don't see the direct correlation. But as Rav Kook, they're never disconnected. Chefetz Adam kashur b'maasav. A person's desire, his ratzon, what drives him? His drive is connected to his actions, right? He might not see a difference between them, a connection between them, right? But when he does certain actions, they affect. I'm gonna read. I don't know if I'm gonna read this. Let me see 1 second. Yeah, I want to read it. Negative actions. This is a commentary. Negative actions of a person, matilim shumam nefesh, they leave a mark on the soul, right? If I did something, let's say I spoke lashon hara chas v'shalom 5 years ago, right? It's long gone, right? A lot of water under the bridge since then. A lot of things have changed. Presidents have changed. Maybe not prime ministers, but okay. Who remembers the lashon hara? Huh?
Maybe not in
Hey, who remembers the lashon hara from 5 years ago? You want to say something? HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembers it, but not only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not just written in a book in heaven, and I'll be reminded after 120 years. It left an effect on my soul, right? If I drank 1 cup of Coca-Cola, it's probably my body's resilient enough to work that out, right? If I smoke a pack a day for 10 years, right, it's going to take my body a lot longer to work that out, right? But spiritually, right, that's because on a physical level, that's because Hashem put mechanisms into our body of perpetual self-cleansing and healing, right? It's Kadosh Baruch Hu working those mechanisms. But spiritually, Hashem left it up to us, right? That mark is there from that Lashon Hara that I spoke 5 years ago until I do something with it, right? So that's what we say. Mashpi'im l'ra al ratzon hakavua. How does it doesn't just leave a mark? It's not just some type of ethereal thing that if I get to it, I'll get to it. It's present. It's currently affecting my motivation, my ratzon. Where's my drive for good in the world, right? Have you guys ever had a moment where like you're like, I could either learn right now, or I could watch something on YouTube, right? And sometimes it's not so easy it's not so easy to pick learning, right? Sometimes a person needs a break or whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking, like where it's really shaveh, it's an equal thing, right? Why isn't my drive in Torah strong enough to like make me push through that, right? My drive it's not just its own thing. It's affected by all the things I've done in the past. It's affected by things in the world, right? That's what Rav Kook is saying right now. So if I've done some negative things in the past, so they leave a mark not just on my soul as like a stain, but they currently affecting me in a negative way. Right? Just repeat it. And therefore that affects not only my ratzon now, but also what I'm going to do. Am I going to watch YouTube, or am I going to learn the Orot HaTeshuva? Right? It's affecting me until this day, right? And now, in the current, if I do tshuva on whatever level I have to do tshuva, and I fix myself and I make my actions appropriate now, so now it doesn't just make a tikkun for now. I also mitaken what it was back then, right? Just like on a physical level, if I not just stop eating bad things now or ingesting poisons now, but I start eating healthy, restorative foods, and I start living a lifestyle that's restorative and regenerative, that helps my body heal, right? So let's go back in Rav Kook. And therefore, also my past actions are not disconnected from my desire and my actions in life right now. It all is affected, right? Since none of these things are disconnected from entirely, and therefore, I have the power right now, in my desire right now, to repaint, to redesign what I did in the past, right? Meaning, stay with me here. Hashem gives me a neshama every second that I'm here, right? What I do with my neshama has different parts. I've got my desire, I've got my thoughts, I've got my speech, I've got my, right? So whatever part of me was involved in an action has an effect on the entirety of creation and on myself, right? If I did something not so good, right, with my action, with my thoughts, with my desire, with my emotions, so that means that those aspects of my neshama are now like invested in that negative action, and it's almost like I wouldn't call it like a cancer, but it's some type of toxin that is now in my soul that's currently affecting me, right? I can go back and I can retrieve those very parts of my soul, but with tshuva, that were invested in that negative action. I retrieve them, and now it stops being toxic, and I repaint what it was. Meaning, I don't know if that's the right word, but does that make sense? Like, now when you go back, what did you do 5 years ago? Was that Lashon Hara that you spoke? It was Lashon Hara, but it's no longer Lashon Hara. Right? It's no longer, that's the amazing thing. This is the biggest pele in the entire creation. This is why Hashem created tshuva before He created the world, because there's nothing in this world that comes close to the wonders of tshuva, right? And you guys know a lot more about the wonders of science than I do and everything, but nothing comes close to tshuva. You can actually change it. You can actually change something in the past, a time machine, right? Not only that, but the Gemara says that if you do tshuva it depends on how you're doing tshuva. If I'm doing tshuva from a place of fear, because I don't want to, get punished, or right. Like I'm learning a Musar Sefer with a good friend of mine, and whenever the Musar gets really strong, so he always gets nervous. And the other day he let out the cutest line. He said, "Oh gosh, Hashem's coming for me." I said, "Hashem's not coming for you. Hashem loves you. Hashem doesn't want to look to punish anybody, right?" Anyway, a cute myself, but
That's a good way. That's the good way to think of it. Like,
Right? If he's doing tshuva from a place of fear, Hashem's coming for me. He's going to get me on that day. I can hide until I'm 120, and then I can't hide anymore. Right? That's also tshuva. And you fixed what happened in the past. Gemara says you take something that if it was an intentional sin, so it becomes like an unintentional sin. Right? You actually change the status of it. But if you do tshuva from a place of love, you guys know what it says, right? Naasim zchuyos. That the aver, that piece of lashon hara, that juicy process piece of lashon hara that he spoke, now becomes a mitzvah. It becomes a mitzvah, right? Because from that very same place, that piece of neshama, now you turn that into serving God. So it doesn't matter. Hashem doesn't need time machines. It's all the past, the future, the present. It's all the same for Hashem. For us, it's like, how can you change something in the past? For Hashem says, it's one and it's all one and the same. It's the most unbelievable pellet. So that's what as Rav Kook is saying here. This is the secret of tshuva. And this is the secret why Hashem created tshuva before the world. Kilomar, that Hashem expanded the creative powers of the soul, the powers of creation that He gave us. Haruchanit, the spiritual, soulful creation. B'yichusai l'maasim v'havaya, in regards to our deeds and in the creation, like meaning all of existence, that it also includes the past. It's not just whereas on a physical level, the reason why it's so hard for us to relate to this in a certain sense is because on a physical level we see that it's all about the present. You know, if I burn down your house, that's it. The house is gone. I can't change that. All right, chas v'shalom. All right, I can't go back and I can pay you for it. Right, but I can't make your house. I can't, resuscitate your house, and I can't piece it back together. But on a spiritual level, even in the past, there's no difference in the past and the present. Hashem gave us in our powers of creation of how we function in this world, that the past is also in our category. Person did something negative, it goes and it's mitgalgel, meaning it goes and it's kind of like snowballs in him. Right? You guys remember the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that says mitzvah goreret mitzvah, avera goreret avera. That one mitzvah brings another, and one sin, right? Why is that so? Why is it so? This is the piece that explains it, because it influences your soul in a way that your desire is a little bit more, right? It's like sugar. Sugar is very addictive. You guys know sugar. They found that sugar. This is unbelievable. They did an experiment with sugar with rats or mice. I don't know. And they found that they got, let's say mice, just whatever, were addicted to cocaine, which is a heavily addictive substance, and they got them addicted to sugar. And then they tested to see which one was more addictive. And I don't remember exactly how they did the experiment, but what happened in the end was the mice, they left the cocaine and they went to the sugar. They were more addicted to sugar than they were to cocaine, right? So how does that happen?
Why?
One ice cream cone at a time, gentlemen. No, just joking. That one ice cream cone, that was very geschmack. And there's all kinds of amazing things that happen on the hormonal levels of our right, that get us excited about it and addicted to it, until a point where a person can be extremely addicted to it, to something that's really not good for him, right? So too, bad things that we've done in our life, if we don't stop them, if we don't change them, if we don't redesign them, so they start to like snowball in that sense, and we become addicted to those things because we become more connected to them, become more desiring of them. Meaning the point. This is a very important point, because sometimes a person has such a strong desire or a yetzer or a taiva for something, and you think that it's natural, but it's not really natural. It's the product of a lot of snowballing of, right? Once you feed that aspect of you so much, so then it becomes a monster, right? So it says olechet umitgalgelet misabechet ki'ur v'ra, and it draws in more dirt and evil, meaning it keeps on causing worse things, so to speak. Hesed v'kilayon, destructiveness in his life. Kol zman shelo hitbiya haratzon alei tzivyon chadash, until he fixes it and he goes back and he redesigns it and he restructures it through tshuva. Hitbiya alei haratzon tzivyon shel tov, and now once he goes back and he does tshuva on that very same thing, that which was a cause for like almost like cancerous growth of negativity in his life. And now he goes back and he does tshuva on it. Migalgeleti atzma tov v'noam chedvat Hashem v'oro. So then it starts to snowball positivity, right? Like I like to call it a forward-feeding cycle, right? A self-feeding, right? If you have a couple, in marriage, there's a way to do marriage. There's a way to do it, right? Just like if you're, lavdil, if you're a CEO, there's a way to do it right. There's a skill set how to do it right, that your staff feels good, right? That your clients feel good, that your product is good, right? That you're doing according to halacha. There's a way to do things. In marriage, there's a way to do things. If a couple is doing things right, so to speak, being kind to each other, being thoughtful, they're pushing each other for the other, pushing away their sacrificing for each other, right? Not saying words of criticism, right? Which are toxic, right? Or if we have to talk about something, we're talking about it in a respectful and loving way, right? But the more you do it, the more there's a forward feeding cycle in a relationship where I always tell people, like, the more times it goes on, you can't believe that a relationship can get that good. It was beyond, from your starting point when you imagine like the best relationship ever, right? But if you actually do it right, so it goes way beyond what you could have imagined from the beginning, right? Because it's a forward-feeding cycle. It just keeps getting better, and more, and it's exponential, right? So too, lahavdil on a negative level, right? One word of criticism. You have no idea how many times couples, treated couples that 5, 10, 20 years in, what was said in the first week of marriage, or in that first year, some type of wound that was made in the relationship. This one said some type of criticism. This one didn't show up when the other one wanted to show up, right? And it's what do you mean you're holding on to this for 15 years already, right? It's not to blame them, chas v'shalom. It's not because they're petty people. It's because if you don't treat it, so then it festers, right? It becomes cancerous and it snowballs in that negative way. That's what Rav Kook is saying.
Like a rotten part of the puzzle.
Right,
It gets rotten all the time, more and more.
Right.
Or it's just there, left there.
No, it grows. It's like gangrene, right? The more that it's not dealt with, the more it causes problems. And so too, I'll just since I'm putting on my therapist hat for a second. So too,
You're a therapist?
Yeah. So too, dealing with our own emotions. When we have our own emotions, right? You guys remember I said earlier in the shir that a lev basar, a fleshig heart, a heart of flesh, is one that's porous, it's open, it's fluid, right? I'm receptive to emotion. My emotion also comes out, right? When we don't give expression to our emotion, so we become sick. We hold on to it, right? So a person like, nobody likes to be angry. Most people, but if if we don't just give a voice to our anger, for instance, like, I'm angry right now, let me deal with my anger, let me work it, let me be honest about it, let me own it, let me let it out for a second, not on anybody else, but let me do what I have to do here, right? So then give out, so it passes. But if I hold it in, so it's like swallowing poison, right? Like I heard one of my teachers said, he said something like, resentment is, to be resentful of another person is like swallowing poison and wondering why the other person didn't die yet. It's like me swallowing poison and not wondering why he's not.
What is this about?
Resentment.
Resentment?
It doesn't help me. I'm holding on to it for myself.
A grudge. You know a grudge?
Okay. No.
Like when you're mad at somebody?
Yeah. Okay.
But like more than that. Like you're not just mad, it occupies your thoughts.
Constantly
bothered.
sentimento di vendetta.
Oh, that's
I was gonna say resentimentio. But it's when I'm mad at you, but I don't tell you about it.
Yeah, you swallow further and then you wish
Right.
you wonder why.
Right. Right. So when but then when you work on it, and this is so too with a couple, and so too with ourselves. When I actually go back into that emotion, or when we go and we deal with what was said 15 years ago, and we heal it, so now we can start to have a whole new level of relationship. It turns it all that negativity can turn into positivity now, if we're both game for it. Okay, let's go weiter. We have some time to do Vav, unless there's questions, comments. Yeah, we're good. Okay, Vav. Hamaasim medabrim hem toch haneshama. This is a continuation, really, of this last piece. Our deeds, our actions, they speak inside of the soul, right? Meaning they affect the soul. Kol peula. This is agav. Sorry, just in parentheses. This is one of a major issue in the world that people do all kinds of actions and they think that it doesn't affect them, right? This we could we could talk just about this one sentence for a really long time, but in the secular world, how people have all kinds of deeply intimate relationships, but just as a casual type of, they think that it's a casual type of thing, but it's not. It affects the soul very, very deeply. Right? I'm talking about between relationships with men and women, that they try to do it in a casual sense. It's just an action. It's just a physical thing, but it's really not. It affects the soul in very, very deep ways.
Also, if they're not, Jewish or neither
Everything, but I'm even just talking just on the level of between human beings, that our action, if you I don't know, if you there's all I'm kind of nervous to go into this because it's a major thing with itself, but just that one example, a person says, like I don't want to really be married, but I don't have a girlfriend. Right? So he wants all the benefits of a marriage, but right? So he goes about it in the secular way, and he thinks that it doesn't affect his soul because it's just a physical need in the end of the day that I'm right, but it's not. All of our actions affect our soul, every single one of them, right? Every word that we say, right? Some people on that level, some people think that as long as I didn't do anything to you, lashon hara, in a secular sense, lashon hara doesn't make any sense. Who cares if they're not here? They don't hear it. It's not like I'm going on TV and blurting it out. They're never going to hear about it. It's just between the two of us. And the Gemara says we're killing him and ourselves right now by talking about it. What are you talking about? It's a secret, right? The walls have ears, right?
Also because it carries at this the point, yeah. This is a lashon hara. That's gonna affect the person. If I say lashon hara to you about someone, and then you think about something about this person, then you go to another friend of this person, and you try to say some different way,
Right.
and this other person goes to the person who was
Right.
the person who
Right.
is the
So
subject.
so that's on a physical level.
Goes to him and say like, "Oh, you're an idiot." I don't know, but
Right. But
I'm
that's on a physical level that you can see how it could snowball into that. I was saying, if me and you talk about Plony and we have a vow of silence, it's never gonna leave the room. What's wrong with that? Right?
That affects us, of course.
If I go skydiving without a parachute, so then I'm very aware that I'm doing a dangerous thing, right? I don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out, right? But and there's lots of actions that people do. If you forgive me if there's any motorcyclists here in the room, but like if I'm a motorcyclist, like I have a much higher chance of not being able to continue being a motorcyclist than I do if I'm driving in a car. Right? Driving in a car is a risk. There's calculated risk to everything, right? But on a physical level, for the most part, we see the effects of our actions, right? The physical effects of our actions. Comes the Torah and says, also if you eat a cheeseburger, it's not good for you. What are you talking about? People eat cheeseburgers, they live to 100 and what? Right? What's the problem? Right? So on a spiritual level, there's an effect of all your actions as well that you don't see. You might not feel them.
Also food.
Sure.
Okay, kosher food, of course. Kosher food.
Sure.
Kosher food. If someone eats very, very strictly kosher, yeah? But, I don't know, this is healthy, this is not healthy, etc. Right? this also affects the soul or just the body?
Sure.
Which is the house
Sure,
of the soul?
affects the soul, no question.
I said,
If it's in the once it's in the category of a nishmata me'od lenafshetechem, right?
but it affects the soul because it affects first the body, and in this way there's a mechanism that affects also the soul. Or is it straight to the soul?
I'll actually go back on that and say not only that, also on a deeper level, different kinds of food have a different effect on the soul. You know, a lot of tzaddikim where Rav Kook, for instance, during the week was a vegetarian. On Shabbos, he would just have a little bit, right? Because and there's a lot of Kabbalistic scholars that say that how important it is to eat meat.
Why?
On Shabbos and on Yom Tov. Very, very, very deep Kabbalistically. Not for now. We can talk about it, but each one of those has a different effect, right? There's 4 different levels of creation. There's domem, tzomeach, chai, u'medaber. You guys know, right? Inanimate objects, plant life, animal life, and then human life, right? 4 levels of creation. So there's a concept that we have to elevate all those levels. We have to connect all those levels, right? So when the animal, he comes in, he takes a bite out of the grass. And the grass got its nutrients from the air and from the water and from the ground, inanimate objects. And now I come and I shech that animal, and I eat that animal for l'chavat Shabbos kodesh. So I'm elevating all those sparks from all those different levels that come into me. Right? Some people even have a minhag that Hasidim.
Never thought of it that way.
Huh?
Never thought of it
Right.
that way.
This is in Kabbalistic Sfarim. This is talked about ad infinitum. This is one of the deepest. Eating is one of the biggest things in Kabbalah. Hashem, think about eating. Right? If Hashem wanted us to be learning Torah all day and doing mitzvahs, like we spend a lot of time like making money in order that we can have food, preparing food, eating food, cleaning up after the food, digesting food. It's a huge, you know, when you have children, you really see it. You know, how many diapers? Unbelievable, right? So much food. Some Chassidim have a minhag that on Shabbos, what they do is they take a piece of challah and they dip it in the juice of the fish, like the fish sauce, and they eat it, right? Dafka that with their hand. Why? Because in that one act, they're combining all the levels. He's the medaber. He's the person. The bread is tzomeach, plant life. The fish itself is the animal life, and the sauce from the fish, the juice from the fish, that's the inanimate object. Right, so in that one bite, in order to have kavanah, to recognize the depth of what they're doing, right? So the depth, everything affects, and you know what this animal's life was like, what you know, all different kinds of things affect. But let's go back to the details here. This actions speak inside of the soul; they affect the soul. Kol pe'ula shehi משתלשלת, אחרי השתלשלויות רבות מהטוב, מהקודש, כשם שהיא נובעת ממקום הקודש, שמציאות של הקודש גרמה לה את הווייתה. So a really long sentence. Let me speak it out and then I'll translate the sentence. When you have a ratzon for tov, you have a desire to do something good. It didn't just start with you, gentlemen. Just like when you have a first thought of some type of new wisdom, chokhmah, right? It didn't start from you. Chokhmah is the otiot. It's the word. It's the letters koach ma. It's the. I don't want to go into it actually. I don't want to go too deep. It starts from it comes from your soul. Your soul got it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but there's a whole hishtalshalut, right? There's a whole seder, there's a whole order of how Hashem created the world and made this whole system, all the different worlds and angels and everything until it comes out into actualization, into expression in your thought. Oh, wow. I'd like to go, visit my friend who's sick right now, right? And what he has a ratzon. There's a whole order of, it's like a dominoes of a million different things but its source comes from pure good and holiness, right? So let's try to understand what Rav Kook says now. Kol pe'ula, every action, shehi mishtalshelet achrei hishtalshelut rabot mi'atov, which it comes as a part of the process after many, many different parts of that process from the good, mi'akodesh, from holiness. Kashem shehi novad mi'makor kodesh, just like it flows out from a place of holiness. This is like the final expression, right? As it comes through us. just like it flows from that holiness, that the existence of good, of holiness, is what caused it to come into being. From its revelation into action. ואין קץ לסיבות אשר התגלגלו מרום חביון עד אשר באה פעולה טובה זו אל הגילוי המעשי. And it's infinite steps, so to speak, from the very beginning, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu down to us, until it actually came into existence and through an action. ככה בהיותה כבר יוצא אל הפועל, היא משיבה את האור לשורשה. This is, I'm not going to go into the details here, but you guys have to understand that Rav Kook he's painting a picture here, which he's explaining some of the deepest Kabbalistic concepts. I'm just going to give you the names so you understand. There's something called Or Yashar and Or Choser, straight light and returning light, right? Straight light means, in a very simplistic understanding, the light that Hashem sends straight like a laser beam into this world through that whole system of all the different layers and the steps, the procedure, until it comes down into you. Now, right, we're like the bottom step. We're the bottom rung of that whole system. Here it is. Now I've got, and I don't want to give anybody like a bad guilty conscience here, but just go back to our example of I got the Gemara and I've got the YouTube, right? Or whatever it is, I got the Sefer and I got the YouTube. So at that moment, he has a thought. Maybe he doesn't have a thought. Maybe he's just like, yeah, I'm just too tired. I can't learn right now. Right? Not even a question. And you need to chill out a little bit and watch a video or whatever. But maybe if he has that deliberation, maybe I should learn. It's probably better that I learn right now. But I really want to see what, this video is about or whatever. Right? Now it's in the world of free will. And all of that whole process is really to come about just for this moment. This is the playing field. You, Mr. Yidela, what are you going to do right now with this free will? And this is not about making anybody feel guilty or bad when you need to rest or anything. So let's just be clear about that. But at this moment, there's this light that came down. That thought that comes in your mind, wow, it'd probably be a good thing for me to learn right now. That's the final expression of this beam of light that came down all the way from the top. And now it's alive in you, and this is the moment of truth, so to speak. What are you going to do with that light? If he says, nah, right? So then he didn't do anything with the light. Hashem's going to keep on trying, don't worry. But if he says yes, right? So then what does he do? Now he turns the light backwards. He sends the light back up, right? This is called Or Choser, the returning light. He sends the light back up to Hashem. Hashem, you shine the light on me, I'm going to shine the light right back on you, right? So listen to how Rav Kook describes it. Once it actually comes into action, he chooses the good thing to do. He returns the light back to its source. He makah את הגלים לאחור ומרחבת את פעולת הקודש ומגדלתה ממטה למעלה. It's almost like a wave of light that's coming down, right? And he strikes the light and he sends the wave back the other direction, back towards the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And he says, in this action that he does, why does Hashem need the light? We don't need to send light back to Hashem. Hashem is the source of light. So it's just a metaphor to us understand. He says, through this we expand holiness and goodness in the world. If Hashem wanted, Hashem could just shine the light on the entire world and the whole world's lit up with goodness and holiness. He doesn't need us through our free will to light up the world, right? He could do it himself. He chose to do it like that. That we have free will, and so when we do that, we expand. Now light isn't just coming from above to below. There's also from below to above. Light's being generated through me. That's the moment. That's called the moment of free will. That's the moment where I'm fulfilling my shlichut in this world. Right? And Rav Dessler says that each one of us has a different point of free will. Meaning, depending on where you are in your spiritual journey, when you first start keeping Shabbos, maybe his major challenge is, should I turn the light on? Should I turn the light on or turn it off? Right? Like somebody left the light when I started keeping Shabbos. So I had roommates. I was living in college, and sometimes my friends would leave my light on Shabbos. Right? So it's a real challenge. Am I going to sleep with the light on? Right? That was my point. Now I'm in a place where if the light goes on, okay, so we sleep with the light on, you put a hat over your head or whatever, you know what I mean?
So, no, what's the problem? What did it change?
Huh?
Did it change? Now from nowadays to this stuff.
Nothing
Light.
changed. Nothing changed physically.
Your approach.
Where's my nikudav b'chira chofshit? It's not really b'chira. I don't really have free choice, so to speak, if I'm going to turn the light on or off now, because I'm beyond that. You guys understand? Wherever you are in your journey, in your growth, so this is the place. It's like this little window. This is where your real free will is. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Yeah. Meaning, I'm not gonna. Even though I have free will to break Shabbos right now if I want. That's true, but I'm not really. I kind of don't. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna. Of course, I'm dedicated. I'm devoted to this, right?
So like we come across different challenges based on where we're at, and that's the situation in which we're called upon to utilize our free will. Exactly. And whereas you still get reward and closeness with Hashem for the fact that you keep Shabbos now, and there's not even a question that you wouldn't turn the light off. That's for sure. But there's this window that this is where the place where your real challenge is. You know, it's like it's really even, and you're not sure, and you don't always have the strength, and you're not right. This is the place where your struggle is, so to speak, right now, right? That's the place where you send the waves back up, the light back up. That's where we make a connection. The Or Yashan, the Or Choser is also it's also in terms of like a yichud, like between a male and a female, not a physical necessarily a physical male and female, but the concept of male and female of the
genealogy.
No, of sending love, right? I don't want to go too much in this because these are all very, very deep concepts and again like I want to stay in Rav Kook. Sometimes I can go way out of Rav Kook to explain it, but the point is that there's a yichud when Hashem sends the light and I send the light back up. So now there's a connection there. It's not just Hashem shining on me, right? And Hashem, when I send the light back up, so the way that it works is that Hashem sends now more light, and I send it back, right? And it's the forward feeding cycle that we were talking about. So let's go back in. Vehu adin lehepech, and this is also true in the opposite sense. Kol peula shemikora mashchat. Every action that stems from evil, from negative, right? From the Yetzer Hara, that's also a whole system of how that came into being. Where did it start? It all started with the sin of Adam and Chava, and that started a whole domino effect throughout history, right? I remember when I was a kid, there was a song by Billy Joel called "We Didn't Start the Fire," right? It was always burning. Since the world's been turning, right? We inherited a world that was filled with all kinds of nastiness, right? We inherited it. So if I continue it, I'm not the one that started it, right? But I have a chance to stop it on my little way. But anyway, there's a whole system there. So any action that comes from that negative place, just like the impure source is what started that action way back when in the sin of Adam and Rishon, right? So too it reveals its illness, its sickliness inside of this the spirit, which made it. Right, and into the person, there's illness in it. Right, we see this also now today. We know that today we talk a lot in terms of trauma, multi-generational trauma, right? Societal trauma, the toxicity of our societies today, which are so much trauma based, which is just passing on the pain that we received, right? Right.
We pain ourselves because we got hurt, and so we keep paying, keep being pumped.
Right. Yeah, I know. I had a student once that let's go back because we don't have so much time. So I have a lot more things I want to say, but let's go back to hear Rav Kook to finish till the end of this piece. Until a person comes and says, I'm uprooting it. I received this bad midah from my father, from his father. I'm an angry person because my father's angry and my grandfather was angry. We have tempers in our family, right? People, you hear that, right? It's a inherited trait, right? And so it's also an excuse because it's genetic, right? I can't really control it, right? No, I'm stopping it. He says the person, until the person uproots it, the person who gains control over his actions. And how do you gain control over your actions? Through the great power of tshuva. Right? We can't do it by ourselves, but Hashem gave us the ability to do tshuva. I can stop this. Sha'az b'ita'alut'ah b'yichud lemidat ha'ava. And then when we elevate ourselves, especially through the midah of love, meaning when we do tshuva with love, like we said before, tikba et medora ba'omek hatov v'taket hagalim mimata lamala ki ilchot ha'peulot hatovot letovah. Then what happens is we reestablish that very midah, that very place inside of us that was stemmed from a negative place, right? From that negative midah, that negative type of action, we replant it in a source of good. And now we're plugged back into that beautiful cycle of hitting the waves back and forth between us and Hashem, the waves of light, or Yashan or Choser, right? I heard once a Rosh Yeshiva talk about his students. He told me a very beautiful thing that two last things I'll say today, and that he said that you know the wave of hitbolut of what do you call it? Assimilation. All Nebuch, so many Jewish families, because of 2,000 years is not easy to be in Golis, and there's a lot of assimilation, and then comes one Baal Tshuva, and he stands up. So he says the way he has a vision in his head, this Rosh Yeshiva, he says it's like this huge wave, right? And then like a little kid standing and saying, "No, I'm not moving. I'm not. The wave stops here, right?" I've in terms of trauma, I have a teacher named Terry Real. He says that listen to this line. He says family pathology, illness, not physical illness. It rolls through generations like a fire in the forest. It burns down everything in front of it. Kids born into it. It's a family of abusers. Abusers were all abused themselves, right? They don't know what to do with that abuse. They end up passing it on, right? So it rolls through generations like a fire until one person has the courage to turn around and to face the flames. And when they do that, he says, and it's very in line with Torah, he spares his children, and he brings peace to his ancestors, right? So I don't know. He's not really he's a Jew, but he's not like a believing Torah Jew. So I don't know why he thinks it brings peace to the ancestors, but for us it brings peace because you actually change it. You change the past. When I stop right now, yes, it's true that I'm addicted to sugar and I can't stop, right? No, I'm stopping. I'm facing the flames. It's true that I was abused, and that's why I think that I'm entitled to be a nasty person, right? No, I'm stopping. I don't want to be a nasty person. I don't want there to be nastiness in the world. It's true that I don't keep Shabbos because, my family, whatever, right? No, I'm stopping. And I'm facing those flames, and I'm taking responsibility for myself at this moment in time. I heal all that past, and I turn those waves back to Hashem, and that makes a big yichud, a big unification between me and Hashem. Whew. That was a lot of words, gentlemen. You have patient ears.